Hey y'all, just wanted to check in with y'all about the texts for this course. Understanding that making decisions about how, when, and maybe even why to purchase textbooks is a topic of great interest, not just to you as students, but to the field in general. And so this is a course that is incredibly content heavy, as you may have noticed. And there really isn't a way to stray from a andragogical model that involves textbooks, at least not at this point. As you'll notice on the left-hand rail of our main Blackboard page, under the textbook link, there are 3 different textbooks for this course. The first one, of course, in terms of priority, is your Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition, the text revision. We are using the text revision for this course. It is out and available, and seems like it would be the most reasonable thing to do to make sure that you are launching from the current sort of manual that is sort of considered the standard in the field of psychotherapy, mental health in general. The larger full text is recommended because it gets into the weeds. It really gets into the details of each class of disorders, each of sort of all the diagnostic criteria, of course, but then also just the prevalence of each disorder as we currently understand it, differential diagnosis between disorders as we currently understand these things, kind of details about, if you sort of land in one spot, whether or not there can be sort of which diagnoses might also accompany sort of in terms of comorbidity with each diagnosis, which ones must be ruled out if you choose a certain diagnosis. So this one has the most comprehensive and complete information, and it will be something that you reference not only throughout this course and the rest of your career in this program, but also you'll find it useful in practicum, internship, and especially to residency. Most of you who pursue residency will have a supervisor that will want to work with you on diagnosis consults with new clients, and they'll get into sort of the details with you that will be relevant to you in this text. Now, that being said, this one is required for this course. This sort of desk reference, which accompanies the DSM-5 TR, is not required, but I recommend that you go ahead and pick it up because, as you can see here, this is probably the text that I have used the most of all the books that I use as references for my clinical practice. So you are most likely going to find the desk reference to be helpful as well, because it gets at the primary information that you need for making a diagnosis. It will have criteria, basic descriptions, specifiers, but what it won't have is sort of the further details about comorbidity, clinical course, prevalence, those types of things. So, not required, but recommended. You are going to get the most bang for your buck out of the DSM-5 TR. I looked at, I think the DSM-5 original updated DSM-4 in 2013. So we're looking at almost 10 years, and the cost of the DSM-5 is around $100. So you're looking at, a little more than $10 a year between editions. I have found that to be highly useful and therefore the most valuable. The second text that is required is Psychopathology, a competency-based assessment model for social workers by Susan Gray. Please do not be distracted by its targeting of social workers. This is a text that has been thoroughly vetted amongst many other textbooks. I've taught from at least 2 other texts, taught this course from at least 2 other texts, and this is by far my favorite of the books, and I think that's because it has a lovely way of emphasizing systems thinking, recognizing the interplay of nature and nurture as it relates to the manifestation of different forms of psychological suffering. And it's also just a really engaging read. So any references to social work are typically around the history of social work or clinical competency as defined by clinical social work. The clinical competency really parallels sort of clinical competency for counselors, almost one-to-one. You can kind of skip over references to the history of social work, but just recognizing that there are some differences in the history between social work and counseling, but generally rooted in the same idea of wanting to understand what it means to be human, what it means to suffer, and how to organize our thinking about what explains suffering and how we might approach relieving suffering. So that text also is required. It is something that you can rent or purchase. If you are not intending to take your education to the doctoral level and then teach courses like this one, you probably are better off renting or selling back your book, just because the odds that you will be referencing this text on a regular basis, even beyond this course, are relatively low, I would say. That is, of course, unless you plan to teach this course, which then the opposite is true. I've seen it priced, used, a wide range, $25 to $100. I've seen it priced for renting between $25 and $55. So make decisions based on your own sort of career goals and your financial ability. Thirdly, Psychopharmacology for Mental Health Professionals, an Integrative Approach by Elliot Ingersoll and Carl Rack. Highly recommend this book as well. It does a lovely job of navigating the nuances between sort of the medical model and sort of more philosophical, artistic types of approaches. Certainly incorporates biopsychosocial, cultural, and spiritual aspects of sort of understanding psychopathology and mental health practice. I also think it complements the psychopathology book really well in terms of especially the deeper dives it does on neurobiology, and of course the way it specializes in helping you understand how psychotropic medication acts on the body and how the body acts on psychotropic medication. I think this is another book that is likely to be reference material for you longer term than maybe the psychopathology book is. Make decisions based on sort of what type of purchase you make. Based on that, you may be more likely to reference this, especially if you're working in a sort of interdisciplinary setting, whether it be at a hospital or an interdisciplinary private practice, maybe a community mental health center. You are, but regardless of what setting you're in, the likelihood that you are going to be working with clients who are also under psychiatric medication management is very likely. And so your grasp of the way that your clients' bodies are affected by the medication and the way that the medication is affected by their body will be of great importance. So I highly recommend, you can probably get away with renting this textbook for the purposes of this class, but you may find value in it longer term as well. So that's the story on texts. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, happy reading.